for whatever reason, I was in the mood to play Max Payne today, and I tried running it. So my computer had crashed, which I had been dreading forever. It had been up for over a year. However, it didn't seem to bother anything, so at least I had that. Um, Although one thing that did happen was, and I looked it up. Apparently, Nvidia had done their own little hidden, or like silent update thing, and it basically broke the ability to change the application settings either through their control panel or NVIDIA Inspector. Well, that seemed to be fixed by the restart. Um, but I was trying to see if it would work with Max Payne again, and at first it wasn't. So even though I had it capped to 60 FPS, um, it was running too fast still, like too high a frame rate. And the problem is that if the frame rate is too high, there's a point in the story. I forget what one it is. It's called Rooftops. I forget the chapter or whatever bullshit, but you're chasing Vinny Gognitti. And there's a point in the cutscene right at the start where he jumps across the gap between two apartment buildings or tenement buildings or whatever the fuck. Well, if your frame rate is too high, he won't make the jump. He'll hit the side of the building and he'll just fall down between them. And now, and if you have developer mode enabled like I do, it'll actually print a like warning there about how he's not where he's supposed to be or whatever, and that breaks the cutscene that comes up after that. Um, and it can essentially make the level unwinnable or fucked up at least. And I tried whatever I could try to get it to work, and it just was not working. And I tried it this time, and it still wasn't working. So I was like, well, what the fuck? Well, I looked at my install folder, and I noticed I had DG Voodoo in there. Well, I tried running it, and it didn't work. I'd fucked with it before. Well, I was trying to find fixes, and everything was pointing back to that. So I decided to put the newest version of DG Voodoo in there. And this time, it actually worked. So, on this one, I had the checkbox to show the DG Voodoo logo in the bottom right. And when I launched it, sure enough, it was right there. And so then that first launch where it showed up, I had also limited it to 30 because I wanted to, like, if it was 30, it's like, all right, if it's 30, like, I'm for sure going to see if it, like, it'll be, you'll be able to tell if it's only 30, right? Well, it was working. So then I left it and I opened it back up, capped to 60. And on both of those, I tested it. And at 30 and 60, now Vinny makes the fucking jump like he's supposed to. But yeah, if the frame rate is too high, it'll get out of sync. Even on the start where they're jumping off the trains, the camera doesn't follow them correctly, right? Um, so it was, nice that I was able to fix that. I think it's kind of weird that I essentially didn't change anything. I mean, really, all I did, I went to the newest version of DG Voodoo. I mean, maybe that's what fixed it. I don't know. But now every program I had issues with before is working again. Now Max Payne is essentially working again. I don't know if I'll play through it or not. Oh, I think I know why I decided to look at it because I was seeing a video by this guy. He was looking into the adaptive difficulty thing because Max Payne has a kind of infamously bad adaptive difficulty thing, like difficulty scale thing. And what I believe the problem with it is, and I left that as a comment. So it basically will go back and forth between all the difficulty levels depending how well you're doing. And so of course the problem is if you're doing well, then you might as well just play it on, hard boiled or whatever the fuck the highest level is. I don't ever remember. That's the level I play it on. But yeah, I mean, at that point, it's like you die in one, like he said, you play well enough on fugitive with adaptive, eventually it scales you to 24 HP. So, that's where you're at on the highest difficulty, just statically. At that point, you're dying like almost instantly. But, Yeah, so I never did that, and I'm kind of curious because he was talking about there's a lot of misconceptions with the adaptive difficulty, and I'm wondering how much of that is false conflations with Max Payne 2's way of doing it, but also I wonder if there's any differences with the PS2 version because I first played Max Payne on PS2 in like 2002 or whatever. I was like 11. I played Max Payne 2 on Xbox, but Max Payne 1 I played on PS2. But I mean, because it's been so fucking long ago, I'm not going to fucking remember the intricacies or fucking whatever. Well, I wonder if anybody's ever really looked into that. But yeah, I guess it had to be that video. But I decided on a whim to try to boot up Max Payne, and I mean, it seems like it's working again. The only problem is there's certain areas of maps, and I don't know exactly what causes it, but the frame rate doesn't get lower. What seems to happen instead is that you get like this sudden sort of I couldn't really call it input lag, but it's like all of a sudden you're when you're moving the mouse around, it's like what direction you look like starts to snap to these large angle changes, and it's hard to explain. But the looking around part all of a sudden gets really clunky, and that actually happened to me years ago with Windows 7, and the solution, I mean, it was way worse with that, but the solution was to cap it to 60, force disable VSync, and uh, all that. But in this case, there's weird positions and maps where all of a sudden the aiming will act all weird. I'm not sure what that's about. But, I've seen some videos on Quake 4. Now, I've fucked with it a little bit, but something I noticed is a lot of these motherfuckers doing Quake 4 videos, they don't seem to be aware that you have to do config file edits, because otherwise, the way that Doom 3 engine games, most of them detect VRAM, they were designed for older cards. I mean, like Doom 3's ultra setting originally was designed for 512 megabyte cards that didn't even exist when it came out. When Quake 4 came out, 512 cards were brand new, right? Like and like so for example, I had a 128 megabyte 9600 XT, and then a 256 megabyte 6800 GT. So Sapphire Radeon 9600 XT, and then 128 meg, and then 256 meg Lead Tech WinFast A400 brand 6800 GT. Um, so I played Doom and Fear and all. I kind of can't believe I ever played those games with a 9600 XT, right? Like the Condemned and Fear demos, you know, 1600 by 1200 6x anti-aliasing. It was a slideshow, but it's like I can make it work, right? Surprised thing didn't catch on fire, but then I got that 6800 GT. Well, it was about the time Quake 4 came out that the first 512 cards started to show up. One of the first was the 6800 Ultra. BFG had a version called the BFG 512 OC or something like that, which I wanted one of those so fucking bad back in the day. But anyway, they were, it's like a lot of old games, right? Like I think Deus Ex does it as well. Like they were designed for computers 20, 25 years ago, and they just never thought that, you would be like, I mean, my GPU is RTX 4070 with 8 gigs of VRAM, right? But so these dudes reviewing these games, like they don't know anything about them. And it's like they can't even tell that the settings are obviously broken. Because even if you pick Ultra, the way that the VRAM detection or however they're doing it works with Doom 3 games, or for most of them, it's just going to make it shit quality anyway. Now, it's a really easy fix, but I seen one guy, I mean, he said he tried the fix and it didn't work. It's like, dude, it's a config file edit. Like, it shouldn't not work. I don't even fucking know. But, yeah, sometimes there's an easy fix. I seen one guy on that same one of those same videos mention how, oh, people playing Stalker, Shadow Chernobyl with DirectX 8. Well, I mentioned on that, I replied to that. I was talking about, it's like, well, dude, I cannot get full lighting to work on SOC. On my current PC, it just won't work. To the point to where the game won't even launch, and like I have to make sure it's set to static lighting, or it just won't launch. I have no clue why, right? Like, I mean, if I played Anomaly, it works, but SOC, I can't do DX9 full lighting like I want to. I'm not that worried about it because I like the look of it. I used to play both because I just like the look of both. So I'm not that worried. It feels like I'm playing the old X-ray builds 20 years ago, like I was doing, anticipating the release of the game. So it's not super bad, but you know, my point was being that a lot of these motherfuckers, they're just lazy. They don't care. They're just in it to make money on Chomo Tube. But also, sometimes there's stuff that you just can't fix, right? But what's weird about it is some of them are unfixable, but it's like never the ones you would think, right? Like, so for an example, Chronicles of Riddick had issues as far back as Windows 7 for me. Now, getting it running through Wine on Linux was like instant, even though it was an Xbox exclusive that got a PC port. So it's been Windows DirectX through and through. It works faster on Wine 10 years ago than it would trying to get it running on Windows 7. Um, Blood, too. A lot of people complain about how difficult it is. I never had any really, I mean, it took more than nothing, but it didn't take it that much effort to get Blood 2 working correctly. Or like, nightmare levels. But then I get shit like that where Stalker dynamic lighting, it just won't even fucking launch. Or Max Payne, it just that weird clunky movement of the mouse thing that it just like only happens in certain areas of certain levels, and I have no clue what the fuck's called. Is it maybe it's a pulling rate thing, or I don't know. I remember seeing one guy talking about Fear. Oh, the frame rate in Fear was so low, and he had to like he had to do the patch thing to fix that. But he talked it up like it was some fucking like ridiculous level effort, and I'm just sitting there and says like, dude, it was just like, I have that fix. It's literally just copying a DLL into the fucking base folder or whatever. Like, it's not a difficult fix. I don't know what he was bitching about. But a lot of these motherfuckers, like, they just are retards. But sometimes dude, it doesn't matter how, like I told that one guy with Stalker, or some of these other games where like I can't get it to fucking work right. I mean, I've done some pretty complicated fixes, right? Like when I got Painkiller to run again, I actually edited the DLL in a hex editor off the basis of a screenshot of a dude who really didn't explain exactly what the fuck he did, but I was able to tell there was a before and after picture. But the way his thing was set up, it organized it different, and then it was also showing the disassembled, hex or whatever. So I basically had to find the exact addresses he was talking about changing. It didn't take a whole lot of, but my point is, not many it sounds simple if you're technically minded, but not many motherfuckers are built to be able to handle that. And it's like, I can go to that route with stuff, and yet some of these games are just inexplicably fucking broken, right? Even if they're playable, they have these weird oddities. But yeah, the damage scaling I always thought was bullshit in Max Payne. What I think it should have been is that it should cap to that difficulty level, but then if you're doing bad, it should go down, right? But it should never go higher than the difficulty, because you can only enable it on the lowest difficulty. So it's like, why would you be doing good on the lowest difficulty and then it like rams you into the fucking hardest difficulty, and now you're just dying over and over again, right? I don't know. I never used it anyway. Someday I might like to have another PS2 or Xbox or this or that, but you know, for the time being, if somebody's going to do those comparisons, it's not going to be me.